This will be for the Khan Academy exercise, power rule, negative and fractional powers. All right, so the notes from the last exercise also apply here. All right, the function is in the form of a times x to the n. And if you want to find the derivative, you take this exponent n, you move it out front, and then you decrease the exponent by 1. So it's going to become n times a times x to the power of n minus 1. All right, that's what we have right here. And that's just the derivative, okay? That's just the slope function. It lets you find the slope at a certain point. All right, so if you want to find the slope at x equals 3, we write f prime of 3, and you would sub in for x in the slope function. All right, remember, if you see d over dx, that's just the derivative with respect to x. dy dx, that's equivalent to f prime of x. All right, so we're just working with fractions now and maybe negatives. Same thing as last time. All right, so here we have g of x, and they want us to find g prime of x. Pretty simple. Okay, if we were to do g prime of x, and we have x to the negative 12. So all you have to do is take that exponent on the x, and you move it out front, so it's going to be negative 12. I need more room here. You take that negative 12, and you move it out front, so it's going to be negative 12 times x to the negative 12, and you subtract 1 from that exponent. Okay, so you have a negative 12. That's times x, and negative 12 minus 1 is going to be negative 13. All right, final answer. Pretty simple. Negative 12x, shift 6, negative 13. That's your derivative. All right, here they want us to find g prime of 1. So we have to find the derivative first, and then plug in x equals 1. All right. What this basically means is the slope at x equals 1. All right, but we need the slope function first, g prime of x. So we have g of x. All right, and if we find g prime of x, that's going to equal x to the negative 10. All right, and as always, you take that exponent, you move it out front, so that's going to be negative 10 times x to the negative 10, and the exponent gets decreased by 1. So that's going to be negative 10 times x, and negative 10 minus 1 is going to be negative 11. All right, so that's g prime of x. That's your slope function. Now, what do we want to do? We want to find the slope at x equals negative 1, so we're going to have to plug in x equals 1. All right, so g prime of x, that's going to become g prime of 1, and that's going to equal negative 10. Plug in 1 in place of x, so it's times 1. And that's to the power of negative 11. All right, and 1 to the power of negative 11, that's just 1. Okay, and negative 10 times 1 is just negative 10. So that's it. All right, just in case you didn't see that, positive 1 to the power of negative 11, that's the same as 1 over 1 to the power of 11, which is the same as 1 over 1, which is the same as 1. Okay, so 1 to the negative 11 is just 1. That's why I canceled it. Negative 10 times 1 is just negative 10. And you just enter that in the box. All right, so we have g of x equals x to the 4/3. They want us to find g prime of 27. So let's see, if we were to do g prime of x, we have x to the 4/3. All right, you take that 4/3 and you move it out front. So that's going to be 4/3 times x. And the exponent of 4/3, that gets decreased by 1. That's going to equal 4/3 times x. In order to subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. So we have 4/3. And the number 1 is the same as 3/3. So it's minus 3/3. Okay, and that's 4/3 times x. 4/3 minus 3/3 is 1/3. So that is g prime of x. Okay, and if we were to find g prime of 27, that just gets subbed in place of x. Okay, but you have to do it in the g prime function, which is this one, not the original. So that's going to be 4/3. And in place of x, you plug in 27. So it's going to be times 27 to the 1/3. All right, 1/3 is the same as third root. What's the third root of 27? Well, what multiplied 3 times will give you 27? Well, that's just 3, right? Because if you did 3 times 3 times 3, that equals 27. So the third root of 27 is just 3. So we have 4/3 and 27 to the 1/3, which is the third root of 27. That's just 3. So it's times 3. 4/3 times 3, the 3's cancel. And we are just left with 4. All right, so that's it. Enter 4 in the box. All right, one more here. We have h of x. They're asking us to find h prime of 2. All right, let's just find h prime of x first. All right, we have x to the negative 5. And what we're going to do, we're going to take that negative 5, move it out front, and subtract 1 from the exponent. So that's going to be negative 5x. And of course, negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. All right, that's our slope function, h prime of x. And if we want to find the slope at x equals 2, we're just going to plug in x equals 2. So h prime of 2, that's going to equal negative 5. Plugging in 2, that's going to be 2 to the negative 6. All right, and let's see. That's going to be negative 5. And 2 to the negative 6, if we take the reciprocal, that's going to be 1/2 to the positive 6. All right. And let's see, negative 5. If you multiply 1/2 6 times, 1/2 to the 6, remember when you have a fraction with an exponent, it is applied to both the numerator and denominator. So that's 1 to the 6th over 2 to the 6th. All right, 1 to the 6th is just 1, and 2 to the 6th is just 64. So it's 1 over 64. So negative 5 times 1 over 64, that's just going to be negative 5 over 64. All right. That is actually the slope at x equals 2. So you just enter that in the box. -5/64.